So the Honor Code is a document that was written in 1921 by the students at Stanford. And basically what it does, it lays out what the expectations are, both for students and for faculty, to create an environment at Stanford that has excellent academics and excellent academic achievement.
The Honor Code itself is something that everyone has to abide by virtue of being a student or a faculty member here. And the big takeaway from it is that every class, at least for our perspective, is that every class has certain requirements to do the work on your own and without help from other students or from online sources, etc. And the Honor Code says that students have to abide by those rules set aside in the class.
The key idea here is that there's unpermitted aid, and you're not allowed to either give or receive it. So some kind of aid is permitted. For example, you're allowed to come to CAs and ask questions. You're allowed to ask questions of your fellow students about some of the conceptual material. But then some kind of aid is not permitted. And if you do either give or receive this aid, that's in violation of the Honor Code. And so in the context of CS110, here's the part of the course information handout that talks about the Honor Code. Basically what this means is that you should never look at other people's code. You should never show people your code. You should never write code for other people. Basically, if you're talking about something that gets to the point of discussing code itself, then you've stepped over a line. Now, of course, there's some exceptions, like if you're talking about what's the syntax for passing a lambda, that's fine. If you're talking about how did you pass the lambda in this particular assignment, that's not allowed. The first is about generic things about C++. The second is about the assignment itself, the thing that you're being graded on.
Now, if you get assistance from, let's say, a CA or another student that would meet the requirement of assistance that's allowed, you still should cite that. So put something in your assignment saying, I talked to this CA about this part of the assignment, or I talked to a friend of mine about how we would think through organizing this part of the assignment. As long as you cite this and you aren't looking at code, then that's fine.
For example, let's say you and someone else came up with a whole bunch of great optimizations for a BFS search, and you were just talking about them and algorithmically what you do, then both of you went and implemented it. And we looked at the code, and you both used the exact set of really unique optimizations. We might be a little worried, but then if there's just a reference saying, oh, I worked with this other student, and she and I talked about this and came up with all these ideas together, and she said the same thing, then everything's good. That's absolutely permitted.
There you go. Unfortunately, the CS department does see its fair share of Honor Code violations, mainly because we have a lot of students, but also because students sometimes don't understand what the rules are. So we really would like you to be watching this video, obviously, and read the discussion in the handout in detail. And if you have any questions, ask us about it. Put it on Piazza or come to our office hours and we can talk about the specifics if you're still unsure.
Yeah, our goal is not, we don't want to search for and find people violating the Honor Code, but we really want just people not to violate it. If we have a year where nobody violates the Honor Code, we're happy and you're happy and everyone's learned a lot. I think motivated this video is I taught another course, CS144, for many years with Nick McEwen, and we started to get a couple Honor Code cases each year, and a lot of the times it was just because students didn't really understand the gray areas, and sometimes they were just caught unawares. So we recorded a video describing exactly what CS144's Honor Code expectations were, and then for many years after, it didn't have a single Honor Code violation. Let's think of this much more as we just want to make sure you're fully informed so that you can excel in this class. So now we're going to go through a couple of examples, some scenarios, some of them simple, some maybe a little bit in a gray area, just to try and help you really understand what our expectations are. Great, so let's say scenario one. I'm working in Coho on a programming assignment, and my friend is there and she's taking CS110 as well. We talk about the assignment, and we talk about some approaches to solving it, like say some optimizations on a read first search. We don't share any code. Is this permitted?
Absolutely. This kind of collaboration is great, and we encourage it. So you can talk about general things about the assignments, but you just can't share each other's code, and you can't copy code, and you have to be submitting your own code. Other than that, yes, you can talk about all sorts of things related to problem solving, and that's the big part of it. Let's talk about scenario 2. So I am under, let's say I was under huge time pressure to meet the deadline for the assignment, and I'm getting behind in my classes, and I just go and I do a little search online, and I find that somebody else who took the class before me posted a solution. They implemented a function that I haven't quite been able to figure out, and I copy the function into my code. I mean, it's already available, it's online, etc. Is this permitted?
No, this is a clear violation of the honor code. On one hand, it's true that software developers in industry reuse code. Often they're very careful about what open source licenses it has, but they do. However, this is not industry. In CS110, we are assessing the quality of your individual contributions, your individual work. You're not allowed to reuse code from any source. If you're feeling under immense time pressure, instead, please come talk to us, send email to the course staff, and we'll see if there's something we can do to accommodate. So scenario 3. Let's say I'm browsing online and I see some code. I see something that's a similar solution, and I read it, but I don't copy it. Is that allowed?
That's also not allowed. It would be a clear violation of the honor code. It's inevitable that the code will guide your thinking. We want you to be able to solve the problems and design your solutions completely on your own. And so we've had situations in the past when students tell us that they couldn't just see any other way to do it. And at that point, it's not your own code. It's not your own independent work, and you've violated the honor code. So don't even look at other code that solves the same problem. And so next scenario. So let's say I took CS110 last year, but I dropped out and am retaking the course this year. Is it an honor code violation to use my own code from a previous year?
No, it's not. It's your own work. The one exception being if in a previous year it was a group project, then you can't because it's not just your own individual work. But for our sanity, please just say so in your README file. Otherwise you might get confused, and think that somehow this looks similar to some previous code. Also, I'd strongly recommend that you still compile and test your code because it could be the assignment has changed slightly. So, scenario 5. So let's say I was thinking of taking CS110 over the summer, and I thought, hey, it looks hard. I want to get a leg up. So I started doing some of the programming assignments, and I looked around. I find some similar code, and I used it because I was just doing this at home. Now I'm thinking of taking the class. Is it an honor code violation to submit this code that I wrote?
If the code contains any code that anyone else wrote, you can't submit it. If you remove code that someone else wrote, you can't submit it, and you should put that in your README that you actually have done this. But again, if anyone else has written any of the code that you're submitting, that's a clear violation of the honor code. So last scenario, let's say that my friend and I are both taking CS110 and my friend's having some trouble. I showed my friend the code and my friend copied a function. Did I violate the honor code?
Yeah, you've both violated the honor code. The honor code reads that they will not give or receive unpermitted aid in classwork. In this case, this is unpermitted aid and you have given it, and so you have violated the honor code.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
All right. All right. I made it.
So tell you, how about I respond to Tanai? I'm going to respond